folks, and welcome to the Texoma Cattleman. On this week's episode of the Texoma Cattleman, we're going to take a look at the cattle market, some things that took place this week, and it didn't move in the direction that you want it to. But we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. We're also going to talk about something that can tell you a whole lot about the nutritional intake of your cow herd without necessarily looking at the cow. That's right, we're going to score some manure here on today's program. And lastly on the program, we're going to talk about fall deworming and why that is important during this time of the year. That's all coming up more here momentarily on the Texoma Cattleman. Well, folks, we'd like to welcome you to the show today. I'm Cody Maxwell, Fannin County Extension Agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. And our show is brought to you by Texas Farm Credit out of Bonham, Texas. You can call Texas Farm Credit at 903-583-3217. From lending options to insurance risk protection management options, they've got it all. They've got a great staff. They can take care of you for sure. That's Texas Farm Credit in Bonham, Texas, 903-583-3217. Also, Frontier Properties in Bonham, Texas, located at 2201 North Center Street. You can call them at 903-583-8721. You can also visit them on the web at frontierpropertiesrealestate.com. Stuart Hall, the broker, heads up a great staff of agents. Folks, they're some of the best in Texas and Oklahoma. They're licensed in both states. They've got listings in both states. They've got a staff that is very knowledgeable about agriculture, real estate, and also residential real estate. Give them a phone call if you're looking to purchase land, purchase homes, whatever the case may be, or if you're in the market to sell as well. They'd love to help you out. They got a great group that can help you out. That's Frontier Properties. FrontierPropertiesRealEstate.com. You can call them at 903-583-8721. Also, Cowpuncher Coffee. I've got my Cowpuncher Coffee with me today. I start my day every day with Cowpuncher Coffee. Their slogan is Spur the Day with Cowpuncher Coffee. You can certainly get your day started off right. Folks, I'm on the sampler pack right now, and let me tell you, I haven't had a variety that I don't like. I love all of them. They're all good. I'm telling you, you got to get on their website, cowpunchercoffee.com. Go on there. There's all different kinds of blends that you can get. We've got the holidays coming up. Would make some great gift ideas for your friends and your family. Stock up for yourself as well. We've reached the cool time of the year, and so it takes lots of coffee to get through the day. That's cowpunchercoffee.com. Go by and visit their website and purchase you some coffee. Well, folks, we're going to talk briefly about the cattle markets and what they've done this week. I think it's no doubt, and we've talked about it the last few weeks, that the futures market has not been good to us at all. I like to compare it to riding a roller coaster. Even though this hasn't been a roller coaster ride, this has basically been a train going down the tracks that has went off and has not even been close to finding its way back on the track. But think of it like this. If you go to Six Flags, you ride the Titan roller coaster, you climb all the way to the top, to the pinnacle of the peak of where you're fixing to drop off. We did it in the cattle market. Go all the way back to October the 15th. We reached it, $3.82 for November feeders. We were at the top. But man, oh man, after some comments that took place on October the 22nd, some news about taking in some more beef from Argentina, which we already take beef in from Argentina anyways. I don't know why that would mess things up, but some comments that some things did. It went south. So on October the 22nd, we fall to $3.64 on the November feeders. You move forward to October the 29th to November the 4th. We really traded in a channel between $3.34 and $3.46. Seemed like some stability is in place. Then you come into election week. The day of election, November the 5th, we fell as low as $3.25 on that board. You come out of that on November the 6th, we fall to $3.18 on the board. And then as we close the market out on Friday, November the 7th, we really just traded in between $3.21, $3.29. Nothing to really get excited about at all. But remember this, folks, fundamentals are still in place. We're at the smallest cow herd that we have seen since 1961. Hey, when it comes to these prices, when it comes to looking forward, when it looks to forecast, that's some good news. Even though we've had to liquidate over the last 4 years, which has brought us to this smallest cow herd, it should bring on some good news, should bring on some optimism. Demands remain strong. That's good news as well. The fundamentals are in place that even though we're in some downtimes right now in terms of the futures market, optimism's in place. Things should look good as we move forward. That's going to do it for our cattle market report for this week. Let's get into talking about some cow manure. I know that's exactly what every one of you wanted to talk about today, but it's important, folks. This is something that we really need to talk about right now because Sunday night we're projected to get our first frost of the year. Some of you in those low-lying areas, you already had one. Date back to last Sunday on November the 2nd. Some folks in some low-lying areas and some of those protected areas, you saw a little frost on the ground. But all across the Red River counties, moving north into Oklahoma and south a little bit, everybody's probably going to see a frost on Sunday night. So there's some things that we need to talk about here as we prepare to supplement the abundance of forage that most people have out there. And I talk abundance of forage. You may be a little overstocked. You may be feeding hay already. That's okay. Take some of these things that we're going to talk about and apply them to the hay that you're feeding at this point in time. So what's going to happen whenever we have that first killing frost is we're going to move this grass, this warm season perennial forage, into a dormant state. Again, it's a perennial forage, meaning that it's not an annual. It's not going to die per se. It is going to move into a dormant state to protect itself from cold weather because it's not a cold weather forage. It's a warm season perennial forage. We've been utilizing it all throughout the spring, into the summer, and the early part of fall. It's been good to us. The rains have been good to us. God's been good to us by giving us the rains, giving us the forage that we have available out there. So all's good on that front. But when we move into this dormant state, we're going to move downward in our nutritional content in this forage. So what the forage lacks, we have to supplement to make sure the cow's getting those nutritional needs on a daily basis. The best way to evaluate what your cow's getting over a few days' time, from 1 to 3 days, is to go out and look at the manure patties in your pasture. That's right. You got to get out and look at poop is what you got to do. I mean, all kidding aside, that's what we've got to do to evaluate the intake of these cattle on the nutritional content. We're going to go through the scoring with you here on today's program and hopefully give you some tools to help you make decisions on, should I be feeding my cattle yet, or am I still good? So we're going to start. These scores are done between a 1 and a 5. 1 being it's a complete liquid, 5 being it's stacking, and we have rings out there on those manure piles in the pasture. Now we start with the 1. It's basically if you were to take a pitcher of water or tea or what have you and pour it into a cup, that's what we're dealing with. There's no consistency whatsoever to it. Now, this isn't all a good thing, scoring a 1. Some of you are probably sitting there thinking, well, that's what my cattle do between March and April. Well, they do, but you're actually in a 2 in that point in time. A 1 can probably mean that we've got some health conditions going on with this cow. Maybe she's got some internal parasites that are interrupting the digestion that should be taking place within her digestive system, within her stomach. And so maybe she needs to be dewormed. We'll talk about that later on in the program here today. Maybe she's got some health things that may be going on with her to interrupt the consistency of this manure that's coming through her. So maybe that's something we need to check. Let's move it up to a 2 and talk about what a 2 looks like, because that's actually what you see whenever you're in March and April timeframe. When we're dealing with the cool season forage, a spring forage, typically volunteer ryegrass, or if you planted some winter forages out there in those pastures, you've probably got some number 2 manure patties. Well, it's not a patty out there in those pastures, but that's what you're dealing with. The pat is going to be less than an inch thick, and then you're dealing with the consistency of about cake batter. You didn't know I was going to compare poop to food today, but that's what we're going to do. Just wait. We've got more to come for you here in just a little bit. But if you like to eat cake, the batter that you make is basically the consistency of a score of a 2 on a manure patty for cattle. That means that they're getting excess protein. We don't have to worry about supplementing anything at this point in time. If anything, we probably need to have some hay out there to slow the rate of passage just a little bit within this digestive tract. Moving to a score 3, this is what is ideal. If you were to talk about a consistency of this, if you like to eat pancakes, I love to eat pancakes, I love to eat waffles, but the consistency of this manure pat is going to be about like pancake batter. I hope you weren't eating brunch. I hope you're not eating pancakes at this point in time. I love pancakes. I love to put peanut butter on them. I love to put syrup on them, and I can go to town on those things, but I'm probably not going to be able to do it for a couple of days now that I've compared pancakes to cow poop. But this is the ideal consistency that we would like to see. There is nothing wrong with the diet nutritionally on a cow when we're scoring 3s. Time frame of this is probably this year would have been about June or July. These were the manure patties that you were seeing out in the pastures. Moving to a 4, we're moving up the scale a little bit, not in a good way, but we're moving up the scale. And so this is where it starts to become a little bit thicker. This is where the pat starts to get a little bit deeper. When we look at the consistency of this is compared to peanut butter. I just said it. I love to put peanut butter on my pancakes. A score of a 3 is like pancake batter. A score of a 4 is like peanut butter. I've ruined it for myself for a while now eating pancakes. But whenever we start scoring at a 4, this is when we need to start looking at supplementing these cows with feed stuff. Some things that you can supplement with. We need to look at something that's a little higher in crude protein value rather than being higher in energy. And so we probably need to look at a cottonseed meal or a soybean meal, something that's really high in crude protein value. Some other options that you have is there's a 28% DDG cube, a dried distiller grain cube that you can get that would work very well in this situation. Cubes are a little easier to feed on the ground. If you're going to feed a meal, you need to feed in a bunk. So if you don't have bunks out there or troughs, probably need to look more towards these cube options that you may have. There's also a 38%. Some people call it a cottonseed cube, but it's a high protein cube that you can feed these cows in a situation where we have a lot of grass out there, but where the grass lacks its nutritional quality that we would so desire for it to have. The last one that we'll talk about is the highest. It's the least desirable, and it's a score of a 5. This is where we start to stack the patties. This is where we start seeing rings that are within those manure patties. This is when we really need to evaluate supplementing those cows or getting a better forage source out there in front of her. If we've got a lot of stacks, high stacks out there, we may need to get some good hay out there too to get a little bit better forage, and also maybe look at supplementing with some supplemental feed as well. If you've got any questions on supplementing your forage during this time of the year, we'd be happy to help you out. Just feel free to give us a call. All right, let's move in and talk about fall deworming. You know, I get the question a lot through the office of how many times a year should I deworm? And then when should I deworm? Well, we're going to answer that here on the program today. So you should be deworming. Where we're at here in Texas is we look at, or where I'm coming to you from, you may be listening from a different state or a different part of Texas, but where I'm coming to you from, we're northeast Texas, and then also our listeners that move down into East Texas, we typically get more moisture than other parts of the state. With more moisture, with milder temperatures, with grass availability, we can have the presence of those parasites that we can get into the digestive system of the animal. Now, when they get in there, they're going to be competing with the animal for protein and energy. We just talked about protein, supplementing protein in a lack of it in our forage that's out there. Now, let's look at a situation. If we've got internal parasites within our animal, and we're trying to move a body condition score on this animal. Now, one thing's for sure, if we're lower in a body condition score than we want to be, it takes 50 days to increase a point on a body condition score. Okay, well, let's say that we're at a body condition score of a 4 right now, and we want to move up to 5 by the first of the year. Well, we can do that. That's no problem at all. Takes 50 days to move up. We'll be there by the end of the year. But what if we're dealing with internal parasites right now? We've got a worm inside the animal that's competing for protein and energy, and we're trying to move up a body condition score. It's probably not going to happen. What's going to happen visually on that animal? They're going to lack in the vigor that they need to be productive out there. A lot of people probably moving into spring calving as we move into the first part of the year. And if we're trying to bump a body condition score, but yet we're competing with internal parasites, it's going to be very difficult for us to do. So we should be deworming twice a year. Those times of year where we think that we have the highest load of internal parasites, the most pressure from them, are going to be May and June. Well, we get a lot of rain during that time of the year. Forage is on the rise, so that makes sense right there. So if you'll do that first deworming at May or June, the second one comes November, December. Now, this year, we're projected La Nina. We're moving into La Nina right now, so we're drier than normal during this time of the year. But to get those animals in a proper herd health management state, if we implement these strategies of deworming twice a year, we'll move them into that state, and then we're going to be better off for our whole cow herd. We did a study a couple of years ago to evaluate the parasite load on cattle during certain times of the year, and we actually did a spring test on this right there in that May-June time frame. And what we found from it was that cows that are on a normal deworming schedule, so AgriLife Extension recommends that you do it twice a year. Cows that were on that schedule had a very low parasite load on them in the times that we would expect them to have a high parasite load. Now, here's the one thing that we did find out from this. Calves, obviously, they haven't been dewormed until their first process, and if that's what you do, calves that had not been dewormed had an extremely high parasite load within them. Now, that being said, though, we did deworm those calves at that point in time, came back, did fecal samples. 2 weeks later, internal parasites gone. And so that lets you know that if you are doing the proper herd health management strategies, techniques on your cow herd, then you're going to wind up with a more productive animal out there in your pasture. Folks, we talked about a lot this week. We appreciate our sponsors, Texas Farm Credit, Frontier Properties, and Cowpuncher Coffee, who help us bring this show to you each and every week. But that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Texoma Cattleman. I hope that we have given you some information on the market, on cow manure, and on fall deworming that can help you with some decisions during this time of the year. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact me at cody.maxwell@ag.tamu.edu, or you can give our office a phone call at 903-583-7453. If you happen to miss this episode, or if you caught the tail end of it and you want to hear more, on your favorite social media, on your favorite podcast platform, all you got to do is search The Texoma Cattleman. You can go back and watch these episodes, listen to these episodes, slow them down if you want, what have you, to really get a grasp on the things that we talk about on the research-based information from Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. I appreciate you tuning in this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Texoma Cattleman. Until then, hope you have a great week.